I just want to make sure do all the pledges have one of these. If you don't, raise your hand.
One of what? I'm sorry.
One of these.
Get one of those.
Kathleen? There you go. All right. So
I need
today,
that.
oh, yep.
I need
Sorry.
one. I'm sorry.
Oh, one more.
Which two?
I'll set it.
I was gonna
There
say.
you go.
That's
Okay.
my chair.
So today,
I'll sit next to it.
you guys don't have to listen to me ramble on again. We have a couple really awesome speakers for you. I also want to remind you there is still food for sale from Lori's over in the back. You can at any time feel free to get up and purchase that if you would like. But right now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ted Barnett, who's going to give us a really awesome speech. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thanks for having me. So can you hear me out of the speaker? Is it coming out of there? Okay, good. So, well, congratulations, you made it a week. And I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Yeah, this is going to go down soon. So we're going to, I've been given an assignment to talk to you about all of vegan nutrition in 30 minutes. What do you think?
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Because I've been teaching this for a long time. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this kind of interactive. You'll see. But how much time? It's already 1:15. So how much time do you want to?
Why don't you go, you can, 45 minutes. How's that sound? You want to go through?
Including question and answer.
And then we'll do questions and so what we're going to do, we actually have two speakers today. So Dr. Ted is going to go till about 2 o'clock. Sarah's good enough from Kitchen Verde is going to come in and talk a little bit about vegan nutrition, and then Ted has offered to stay and answer questions after Sarah's talk. So
Well, I thought I was talking about vegan nutrition.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, what did I say? Vegan fitness. Sarah was
Okay.
talking about guys. Okay.
No problem. I can switch gears. I can do it. Okay.
No. You're vegan nutrition. Sarah's vegan fitness. It's all good.
So welcome to the world. Who knows what that stands for? Somebody can say, yell it out. Whole food, plant-based diet. Exactly. Perfect. And we're going to add one little caveat here, which is oil-free. You've probably heard about that. And don't have a whole lot of time to explain why that's important. If you took the long version of this course, you would be able to understand that. But anyway, so when we say whole food plant-based, what we mean is minimally processed whole foods. And in this case, with no added oil, not even olive oil, which people say, gee, I thought olive oil was so healthy. Don't people think that it's healthy, right? And, you still do. Yeah. So, and there's basically two oils that are not as harmful to you as other oils, and they are olive oil and canola oil, because they're monounsaturated. And we also want you to get some B12 and sunshine. If you follow these rules, if you follow these rules, basically, that's all we're asking you to do. The question is, how do you follow the rules? So, this is what most people think vegans eat. Right? There's granola, tofu, and grass. But this is what we actually eat. It's just a full rainbow. You can't read the whole thing there. This is from Pete, obviously. So there's tons and tons of things for people to eat. Actually, most people who become vegan and go inside this program, this way of life, find that they're eating a lot more variety than they were before. It's not just pizza, burgers, and wings or whatever. It's a whole bunch of things. So here's a quiz for you. So which of the following contains the most potassium? So we're gonna go through these little exercises so you can understand that you've got some knowledge already, but you're not necessarily sure where that knowledge came from. So is it a cup of skim milk? Is it a medium banana? Is it a medium potato? Is it 2 ounces of cheddar cheese? Or is it a cup of black beans? So who votes for the skim milk? Who votes for the banana? Okay. Who votes for the potato? All right. Who votes for the cheddar cheese? And who votes for the black beans? Okay. And the answer is the potato. Who would have thought? I always thought it was a banana, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we grew up being taught. Because, you know why? Because your doctor told you, or one of your relatives, that when you were on a diuretic and you were losing potassium, you needed to replace it with something, so you just eat a banana. Because you can slice it with potassium cereal, right? So, can you hear me, Dr. Doyle? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Not so well?
They're very close.
I can turn it up. How about?
Your collar's covering your mic.
Oh, my collar's covering my hair. How's that? Got that right? Back there now? Okay, good. And I got a dog? Oh, cool. So it turns out that all vegetables are loaded with potassium, not just bananas, but all fruits and vegetables are loaded with potassium. You don't even have to think about potassium if you're eating whole foods, because, especially fruits and vegetables, because they're just loaded with potassium. So tomatoes are full of potassium. Anything you can think of that's a whole food is full of potassium. Processed food, however, is full of sodium, and that's why we worry about it. It's kind of a sodium-potassium balance. So if you're eating a lot of salt and a lot of processed foods, then we are more concerned that you get more potassium. But if you're just eating whole foods, the potassium is going to come in naturally. So which of the following contains the most calcium? Not that it really matters, and I'll explain at some point why it doesn't really matter. It turns out that, well, I'll explain it right now. It turns out that osteoporosis is not really a problem with calcium. It's a problem with other things. But I'm going to give you a list, and you tell me what has the most calcium. Is it a cup of milk, 2 cups of broccoli, 10 medium figs, or a cup of calcium fortified orange juice? Who votes for the milk? Who votes for the broccoli? Who votes for the figs? Who votes for the orange juice? All right, and the answer is, it's 2 cups of broccoli. Right? So there you go. How much calcium do we need every day in our diet? What's the official recommendation? Anybody know? 1,200. Yeah, around 1,200, 1,000, 1,200 is the official recommendation. You probably only need about 600 milligrams of calcium in your diet to avoid being calcium deficient. But the dairy industry wants you to think you need 1,200 because really it's the easiest way to get that much calcium is to just drink a bunch of milk. But honestly, greens, broccoli, as you just saw, and lots of other plant foods are full of calcium, and it turns out you don't need that much. So broccoli comes in ahead there. Cool. As a percentage of calories, which of the following is highest in protein? Again, it doesn't really matter because if you're eating whole foods, you're going to be getting enough protein. But is it the whole milk? This is as a percentage of calories. Whole milk, 2% milk, broccoli, cheddar cheese, navy beans, kale, or a McDonald's hamburger. Who votes for the whole milk? Who votes for the 2% milk? Who votes for the broccoli? Well, how about the cheddar cheese? How about the navy beans? How about the kale? How about the McDonald's hamburger? All right. So broccoli comes in first at 44% calories from protein. Now, it's a little, I'm playing a little bit of a game here because there's not a lot of calories in broccoli, right? You would have a hard time eating enough broccoli to get all your calories in a day, right? But if you did, you would be probably protein toxic because you really don't want to get that much protein. So what comes in second? Kale, 28% calories from protein. What comes in last? McDonald's hamburger, right? And who's going to be saying to you, as a vegan, who's going to be saying to you, where do you get your protein? The person standing there eating a McDonald's hamburger and with a can of Coke, right? Yeah. Okay. How much protein is in Coke? Yeah. 0, right? So that person is the one who has to really, really worry about where they're getting their protein, not you. So, who said this? If they can get you asking the wrong questions, they don't have to worry about answers. So this is Thomas Pynchon and Gravity's Rainbow. And the point here is we're all worried about the wrong questions. And that helps industry because all they have to do is get you worrying about the wrong questions and then provide answers to those questions, like packaged food. So you see all this packaged food and it's got protein all over, right? All over it says protein. So and it's to the point where people have no idea how basically irrelevant protein is. They think it's the most important nutrient. Now, I shouldn't have said it's irrelevant, because it does matter. You need protein to survive, right? But the only diets that are really going to be protein deficient are those that are based on junk food. Theoretically, you could become protein deficient if you just ate fruit as well, but that would be pretty hard. But if you're eating whole foods, you really, really would have a hard time becoming protein deficient. And I'll show you that in a little bit. So here's some examples of the wrong questions. Where do I get my protein? What do elephants eat? Plants. Do they eat any meat? Are they protein deficient? No. They get all the nutrients they need from plants. What about this cow? Where does she get her calcium? Is she drinking milk? That would be silly, right? She has so much calcium, she can put it into her milk and still her bones don't collapse. She's getting it from grass and what are other green leafies that cows eat. So, again, an example of a wrong question. Where do I get my iron? Gorillas. They are vegans. Where do they get their iron? From plants. Right. Just green leafies, whatever. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about something about myself. I'm a high-tech doctor with low-tech solutions. Some people call me Dr. Veggie. If you read my license plate, that's what it says. This is one of my tools up there. That's a little angioplasty balloon. So interventional radiologists do angioplasties. We open up arteries. Cardiologists do the hearts. Interventional radiologists do the rest of the body. And the cardiologists get all the credit. But this is probably a more powerful tool than the angioplasty balloon. So high-tech empowers the medical industrial complex and is extremely expensive. Low-tech empowers the patient and is inexpensive. Drugs and high-tech treatments often have negative side effects, whereas lifestyle or low-tech interventions often have positive side effects. So what are the negative side effects of drugs and surgical treatments? Well, drugs, we get side effects, right? There's, how many people do you know who were on Lipitor and had to quit? Probably somebody in the room. So because Lipitor causes muscle pains, it causes abnormal liver enzymes, and so you have these negative side effects with the drugs and with things like stents, which end up not lasting forever. Whereas if you treat the underlying condition with low-tech interventions, basically diet and exercise, what are the positive side effects going to be? Well, gee, your cholesterol comes down, your heart disease gets better. We have patients who say, oh, gee, my heartburn went away. My joints never felt so good. My skin cleared up. I went to the dentist and my gums have never looked better. So these are all side effects, but they're positive side effects. Very few negative side effects, other than you might get harassed by your friends and family. You've probably already experienced that, right? So high-tech makes a good living for its practitioners. Unfortunately, low-tech practitioners starve. So this is where we need to try to help change the medical care system, because it really should be just as rewarding to help people stay healthy as it is to fix people when they're broken. For one thing, fixing people when they're broken is actually pretty temporary. It doesn't really treat the underlying problem. So if someone has diabetes, we can put them on, metformin and insulin, those kinds of things, and it's going to help them from not getting sick so quickly, but they're still going to get sick. Whereas if you can treat their diabetes with diet, then actually the diabetes goes away, or can be substantially reversed, depending how far along they are. But most people who are in early stages of diabetes or pre-diabetic, if you put them on a whole food plant-based diet that's oil-free, the diabetes goes away. Which is kind of amazing when you think about it, because no one's ever been told that when they go to their doctor. They're basically told, when you go to the doctor with diabetes, what are you told? You're looking down this long tunnel, and you can expect that you're going to get medication, and we're going to have to keep adding medication, and then you're going to have complications. And the complications will be what? Diabetes is the leading cause of blindness, amputation, renal failure, and dialysis. And these are all things that are kind of, well, it's just inevitable. That's what's going to happen to you. What you're not told is that there's an exit door right over here. You can just leave this tunnel and go out the door. And that's what you guys are all learning about in this program. So I want to show you something from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, one of the organizations that I'm very active with. People know about PCRM? You've heard of Dale Barnard? Right. So he's one of the plant-based heroes, or vegan heroes. If we have time, we'll talk about what the difference between plant-based and vegan is. There really isn't. But this is the power plate, and it's been out since 2010. And basically, back in 1986 or 87, the Physicians Committee came out with the new 4 food groups, which was fruits, grains, legumes, and vegetables. And then in 2010, they just turned it into a plate, which looks a lot better. Anyway, the USDA was kind of dragging their feet, but in 2011, they said, oh, we're going to give you My Plate, which would replace the My Pyramid. And does anybody notice kind of a similarity there? Just remember which one came first. PCRMs came first. PCRM sued the actually was suing, in the process of suing USDA because they said, the official recommendations from the USDA are actually making people sicker, And in fact, and not only that, but it also, there was a sort of institutional racism in there because dairy is, not really tolerated by most people of color, or many people of color. And so, who knows, as far as lactose intolerance, what percentage of people around the planet are lactose intolerant? Anybody know the answer to that?
Two-thirds.
2/3? Yeah, about 75%. Yeah, it's really high. 2/3 of African Americans are lactose intolerant. So, so just on the general population, it's about 25% of Americans are lactose intolerant. For Asians, it's over 90%. And if you think about it, what is lactose intolerance? Anybody know? It's not the same as a food allergy. It means because a food allergy means you eat something and you break up and hives, or can't breathe, or something like that. But an intolerance means you can't digest a particular food component. So lactose is a sugar found only in milk. Well, you need a special enzyme to digest that milk sugar, which is called lactase. And once you're weaned, you never need that enzyme again, unless you're drinking milk. Well, most normal mammals stop drinking milk once they're weaned, right? So it's actually a mutation that allows people to digest milk. So the mutation actually, the abnormality really is being tolerant of lactose. Basically, for certain people who are living in certain climates, they got you through the winter, right? Because you could milk your cow. So there's, the Alps, that's a good place to be able to live off your cow. And there's places in Africa where there are certain tribes that tend to be lactose tolerant. But the problem is, lactose itself breaks down into, toxic components. Lactose is a disaccharide, it's two sugars connected to each other. One of them is glucose, which is fine. The other is galactose, which is associated with cataracts and prostate cancer. Anyway, enough of that. We'll move on. So that was, this is probably in your handout. I think the PowerPoint's in there. If it's not, you can go to the PCRM website, which will definitely have that hand that you got, the Vegetarian Starter Guide. So take a look at that. I have a little video I want to show you. And so we're going to see if it works here. That sounds like it's going to work.
What will your last 10 years look like? Will you be quick enough for a game of tag with your grandchild? Strong enough to embrace every moment? Will you grow old with vitality? Or get old with disease? It's time to decide.
Awesome.
So, where did I get that video? It's called The Next 10 Years. I think you can probably find that on YouTube. It was actually produced in Canada. Yeah, it's really powerful. If that's not motivating, I don't know what is. So we're going to talk briefly, everything we're going to talk about today is going to be really brief. But we're going to talk briefly about osteoporosis. So let's pretend it's a disease of dairy and or calcium deficiency, which of course it's not. How can it be a dairy deficiency disease? I mean, in this country we're basically taught that the reason we have osteoporosis is because they don't get enough dairy, right? How could that be? In China they don't have dairy and their osteoporosis rates are lower than ours. Japan they don't have dairy and their osteoporosis rates are lower than ours. In fact, the countries with the highest dairy intakes have the highest rates of osteoporosis. So it's not even logical to tell those people, wow, you're already drinking more milk than anybody else. You should drink more. But that's what we tell people. So let's go to the USDA website. Let's look at some of their tables. So this is, over there is Appendix B4, non-dairy food sources of calcium. And over here is Appendix B5, food sources of calcium. Do you see a bias there already? Did you notice a bias? It doesn't say dairy food sources of calcium. It says food sources of calcium. The implication there is that the correct place to get your calcium is from dairy, because that's food, right? Whereas the other place is the alternate. the non-dairy food. It's kind of subtle, but it's there. And there's just, I happen to like the USDA website for getting actual data, so about these, for actually looking at those nutrient quantities and the percentage of calories from whatever. So I took the same table and I modified it to demonstrate the milligrams of calcium per calorie. So what do you notice up here? If you look at calcium per calorie, what comes out on top?
Cabbage.
Greens, bok choy, collards, turnip greens, spinach, kale. Those have the most calcium per calorie, far more than dairy, which is down here. Like whole milk, you get 1.9 milligrams of calcium per calorie. Up there, you're getting 8 milligrams of calcium per calorie. So if you're given a budget of, say, 2,500 calories a day that you're going to eat, maybe 2,000, 2,500, something like that, you basically are going to whiz through your budget a lot quicker on milk than you are on the greens. Think about it. I mean, there's some math involved there, but just think about it. So, for example, kale, which is one of my favorite foods, you're going to be getting only 20 calories in a half cup, but you're going to, in that you're going to be getting, what's 20 times 4.5, so you're going to need almost 100 calories of, 90 calories of calcium just from a half a cup of kale. But the USDA just can't get over dairy, so here's they're calling lactose intolerance a deficiency of the enzyme lactase that breaks down the sugar lactose in milk and milk products. But funny, why would 75% of the adults on the planet have a deficiency? Perhaps producing lactase after eating is a real deficiency. So let me ask you a question. Is there any good evidence that increasing dairy intake will prevent or treat osteoporosis? And the answer is no. And one would think that with all the emphasis on dairy, scientific studies would overwhelmingly demonstrate a benefit to dairy consumption. Wouldn't that make sense? But they don't. So it turns out that to avoid osteoporosis, you need to get enough calcium, which is about 600 milligrams a day, not a whole lot. You're going to get that just by eating whole foods. You probably don't even think about it. But why do people in this country have osteoporosis? Well, not enough exercise. You need to do weight-bearing exercise. You need to get out in the sun or take vitamin D. You need some other things that are found in greens, like magnesium and vitamin K. And a friend of ours who's now 80, about 10 years ago, or maybe only 5 or 6 years ago, actually, she started really taking this seriously. She lives in Connecticut. She got a personal trainer who really basically assaults her almost every day. Her DEXA scan, her bone density has gone up. She's incredibly buff. She actually gained weight because she's just solid muscle now. It's kind of scary, actually.
How old is she?
She's 80. Sharp as a tack, too. So let me ask, now we're going to go to heart disease. So what do scientific studies show is the healthiest percent of calories from fat in the diet for somebody with heart disease? Anybody know the answer to that? So like Ornish, Esselstyn, what percent calories from fat were in those diets where they actually reversed heart disease? Anybody know? It's not zero. It's impossible to get a 0% calories from fat diet if you're on whole foods. Because all food contains fat. All whole foods. Sorry? 10%, exactly. So, let's say 10 to 20% with no added oils. Okay? So, I'm a patient. I've got heart disease. I want to learn about fat because I hear fat's important. So I go to the American Heart Association website and I go to their page. It says Fats 101. What could be better? I'm going to learn about fat. So what I don't notice, or maybe I do, is that the sponsor of that page is the canola industry. Canolainfo.org. Well, that's okay because canola is one of the good oils, right? Thank you. You're all shaking your head. Good. So now I'm this innocent cardiac patient. I don't know much about nutrition, but I'm going to learn. So I click on that and I end up with the canolainfo.org website. And here's a recipe for antioxidant smoothie. Excellent. It's got great ingredients, but what's the first thing I notice? There's 2 teaspoons of canola. Why would that be? Well, they're trying to sell canola. Okay? So what was the percentage calories from fat that we were aiming for? 10%. What do you think this is going to turn out to be? Well, let's look at, there's the, just like any good label, they give you some facts. They don't give you all the information because you have to do some calculations. So here's the nutritional analysis. How many calories per serving? That's at the top. there's 80, right? And how much total fat? 3 grams. How many calories in a gram of fat? 9, right. So there's 3 macronutrients. What are the macronutrients? There are things that give you calories. What are they? Sorry? Fat, carbohydrates, and protein. So fats, and just remember 4, 4, and 9. And just remember fat is the highest. That means the other ones are 4. So there's 4 calories per gram of protein, 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate, and 9 calories per gram of fat. So let's do the calculation. So how many calories from fat? 27. And what was the total number of calories? 80. So 27 divided by 80 is 0.34, or this is 34% calories from fat. Well, wait a minute, I'm a cardiac patient. I'm trying to get my heart, my intake down to 10%. And this is 34. This is like the standard American diet is 35% calories from fat. Even the American Heart Association says you should get your calories from fat under 30%, and here it's 34%. It's insane. It's just insane.
Ted,
Yes,
is that oil?
that was from oil.
That's a half a cup, it's only 80 calories?
Not half a cup. It was 3 grams.
That serving is more than,
Half a cup is.
Half a cup of the serving is the smoothie is half a cup.
but that's not a half a cup, that looks like a whole lot
Oh,
more.
that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. So anyway, the serving size, whoever the company is making a product or writing the recipe, they're allowed to pick their own serving size. So in this case, they picked half a cup, which you're right, would not be. You probably drink a whole cup.
It looks like 6 grams.
So more like 6 grams. And that was actually was 2 teaspoons of oil. Was the 3 grams. Actually, wait a minute. It was 2 teaspoons in the whole thing. I don't remember how many servings it was. I'd have to go backwards, and then you'd have to listen to the crash notes. So we'll just skip that. So people know about Dr. Furman? So he's got this micronutrient score. Now, he's not completely vegan, so we're going to get rid of that. And you look at the scale, things down here, so things at the top are good. Nutrient density means more nutrients per calorie. So what comes in at 100 is raw leafy green vegetables, or steamed green vegetables, probably the same. And then solid green vegetables come in at 97. Now caloric density, meaning fewer nutrients per calorie, is what you want to avoid. So what comes in at 0? Sugar, refined sweet. There's no nutrient value to sugar. Refined oils, including olive oil, comes in at a 1. So you're getting a lot of calories, but you're not getting much in the way of micronutrients. Now, in fairness to extra virgin olive oil, that might move up to a 3, something like that, because there is stuff in there. But it comes with the oil, which is bad for you for other reasons. And we can talk about that during the question and answer period. So, here's another question. What percentage of my calories need to come from protein? Does anybody know that? Guesses? What is the average American getting in terms of protein in their diet? What percentage? So, about 20%. They're getting at least 20% of the calories. Like a McDonald's hamburger. Right? That came in at 20%. But you only need probably only 7%. Maybe even 5%. You don't need that much protein in your diet. But let's pretend it's 9%. So if you're eating food that's all higher than 9%, you'd be okay, right? You wouldn't have to worry about protein. So I'm telling you this because the hardest thing about this whole process is this is all going to make sense right now. But you're going to walk out of here, and the first thing that someone's going to ask you, and here you're doing this crazy vegan diet, is where do you get your protein? You're going to go, well, he told me, actually, I don't remember anymore, right? That's what's going to happen, because you're going to get challenged. So I'm teaching you how to argue. So, let's pick a food. A baked potato. What's the protein as a percentage of calories in a potato? Anybody know? Guesses? Is there protein in a potato?
Yeah.
There is.
10%.
It's 10% or 9%. Is that, if you lived on potatoes, would you get enough protein?
Yeah.
You might not get a great balance, but you'd have enough protein. How about fat in a potato? Is there any fat in a potato? No? Actually, it's 14% calories from fat. Yeah, crazy, huh? Why is there fat? Well, because all whole foods contain all 3 macronutrients, because they're made out of cells. And all cells contain all of those macronutrients. They just have to. What about French fries? What's the percent calories from protein in French fries? Is it more or less? Less, yeah, it's found around 5%. Why is it lower?
Because calories.
Because you're adding empty calories, you're just adding fat, right? So percent calories from fat goes way up, it's like half. And that person is standing there with their french fries and their McDonald's hamburger, they're asking you, where do you get your protein? And there, if you lived on french fries, would you get enough protein? No. Because you need at least 7%. What about potato chips? It's about the same, about 5% calories from protein and more than half from fat. And if you're a heart disease patient, what are you aiming for? 10%. Right. And for most people, you should try to keep it under 20%, even if you don't have heart disease. What about Coke? What's the percent calories from protein in a Coca-Cola?
0.
Exactly. And how about fat? That's 0 fat also, because it's all coming from carbohydrates, right? It's all sugar. What about pasta? How much protein in pasta? We're talking about whole wheat pasta here.
15.
15%? That's a good guess, 16%. I'm sure some is 15, yeah. I mean, all these things are natural products, so they're going to vary a little bit. How much fat is in pasta? 0, right? It's about 7%. Okay, we're going to test your memory now. How much protein is in broccoli?
20?
It's 44% calories from
Oh,
protein.
44.
Okay. What percentage of it is from fat? Yeah, about 4%. Yes. And what about kidney beans? What percent calories from protein are in kidney beans?
40.
35%? Anybody else? 35? It's about 27%. It's not as high as broccoli. But why do you think kidney beans are a better source of protein than broccoli, kind of generally? Because they're calorically dense. You can eat more beans. You could live on beans because they're calorically dense, just like grains are calorically dense. It's really hard to get enough calories from broccoli and greens. And the percent calories from fat they're pretty low. Some of the beans are higher, like soybeans are really strange. They're very high in protein and fat. What about kale? What's the percent calories from protein in kale? 100. So it's about 27%. So it's, and it has fat. 13% calories from fat. Now, is that good fat or bad fat? Good fat. What kind of fat do you find in greens? You've probably heard this term omega-3 fatty acids. And people are concerned about getting enough omega-3 fatty acids, and that's one of the reasons they think they should be eating fish. Where do the fish get their omega-3 fatty acids? They get it from plants. They get it from the plankton, right? We terrestrial creatures get our omega-3 fatty acids from leaves and also from ground up flaxseed, which is a great source. What's the most common fat on the planet? It's alpha-linolenic acid, which is omega-3 fatty acid. The basis of it's so common because it's in leaves, and leaves are really common. So this nutrient that we're really worried about getting enough of is actually extremely common in the natural world. It's just that if we have time, we'll talk about it. It's just that it's taken out of most of the food that we eat. What about an apple? What percent calories from protein?
10.
It's pretty low. It's actually 2%. Remember I said you could, and it's 3% fat. If you could, if you're a fruitarian, if you just ate fruit, you could conceivably be protein deficient. But does that mean you shouldn't eat fruit? Of course not. You should definitely eat fruit because most food is way higher than 10% calories from protein. And there's all these other great things in food, the micronutrients that Dr. Furman talks about. Okay, we're going to do this exercise a little bit longer. What about strawberries? So higher or lower protein?
Low.
Not that bad, 8%. Okay, so there's protein in strawberries. There's also fat in strawberries. What about bananas? Higher or lower protein? Sorry? High? 10. It's actually 5%. They're kind of low. And not much fat. So bananas aren't the greatest food source, but they're not bad. I mean, there's nothing evil in them, right? And if you're eating lots of other stuff that's higher than other things that bananas are missing, you're going to be fine. What about carrots? What percent calories from protein in a carrot?
16.
So that's 9%. We'll go through this 5% fat. We're going to go through this a little quicker, because otherwise I can see you're getting bored. What about walnuts? 17%? Anybody else? It's about 9% calories from protein. What about percent calories from fat in a walnut?
Oh.
How high?
27.
20? 25? About 90%. So basically walnuts are either protein or fat. Right? There's nothing else in them. There's a tiny bit of carbohydrate.
Well, I never thought I'd see the day when walnuts cost more than almonds.
Ted,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
sure.
again, per serving?
Per serving.
How much, is this per serving?
This is percentage, so the quantities are relevant here.
Oh.
This is as a percentage. It's a good question, because sometimes people are trying to achieve a certain number of grams of a particular nutrient. Like you're trying to get 56 grams of protein, right, if you're a 70 kilogram man. So how do you do that? Well, I don't like calculating by grams because there's too much thought involved. I'll just calculate by percentages, and that way, if I'm worried about a particular nutrient like protein, and if everything I'm eating is more than 9% calories from protein, I don't have to do any math. I'll just know that, well, everything I'm eating today is 15% calories from protein. I'm fine for the protein. After a while, you realize that protein is not really the most important nutrient anyway, and so you just sort of forget about it. Because really, what do most Americans really need more of in their diet?
Carbs.
Yeah, carbs, but in particular, one particular kind. Well, you need more fiber, right? I mean, we tell people to get, 15 grams of fiber, I think, but you really should be shooting for like 50 grams of fiber a day if you can. And our ancestors are probably getting upwards of 100 grams of fiber a day because they were living on leaves. Tofu is also, again, a little different. That's high in protein, also high in fat. Soy milk, which is a fairly processed food, I would say. 28% from protein, 36% from fat. What about raspberries? So that's another whole fruit. It's up there with, it's kind of like a strawberry, 9%, and a little bit of fat. What about blueberries? They're going to be high or low?
No.
So they're a little low, 5%. I mean, you shouldn't eat blueberries because they're low in protein.
No.
Well, that would be ridiculous because blueberries are loaded with all this other great stuff, right? And a little bit of fat. What about brown rice? High or low in protein?
High.
High. How high?
20.
It's actually only 9%. It barely makes the cut. So, can you live on brown rice? Well, if you put other stuff with it, of course. And it's a great source of calories and healthy, fiber and things like that. And it's fairly low in fat. What about green beans? So green beans are a legume, right? Except they're not ripe. So they're really more like a salad vegetable. So you're going to be 22% calories from protein and 7% calories from fat. So that's it for that particular exercise. We have 8 more minutes. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. So I teach a 6-week plant-based nutrition course. It's called the Plant-Based Diet, Eating for Happiness and Health. It's accredited through the University of Rochester for 12 CMEs. We just finished the 15th time giving it over at the Monroe County Medical Society. We had a class of 49 over there. So far 670 Rochesterians have taken the course. It's one of the reasons I can talk about this without stopping, because I've done this a lot. Although I've never given this talk before where I really kind of condensed it, so thank you for your patience. In 2015, we founded Rochester Lifestyle Medicine. And the point of that is to reduce the individual and societal burden of chronic disease, and to reduce the burden of healthcare costs related to chronic disease, and to help make lifestyle medicine the standard of care for chronic illness. Because how much money we spend every year on healthcare in this country?
It's not.
Billion.
It's trillions. We spend $3.7 trillion on healthcare in this country. About 75% of that is spent on treating people's chronic illnesses that they didn't have to get. I'm not 5 or 6%, which would be incredible, right? If it was 5 or 6%, we'd say, well, we should do something, right? But it's actually 3/4, or maybe more. So it's kind of insane, the system that we've set up, and it's how I make my living. I love doing it. I get to have only the best toys in the world. So a little bit more about me. I went to Yale, graduated in '76, a long time ago. Tufts Medical School. I got my boards in diagnostic radiology in 1984. Then they gave the first boards in interventional radiology in 1995, which I took those, and you have to take those every 10 years. So the last time I had to renew them was 2015. I have to wait till I was 72 before I have to renew them again. But then they gave the first boards in lifestyle medicine in 2017, last fall. So every 22 years I add a specialty. So there's now 5 people board certified in lifestyle medicine in Rochester. They all work with Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, and there's only 204 people in the whole planet, actually, maybe even the whole solar system, who graduate and lifestyle medicine. So I'm kind of proud of that. And it's very exciting that it's one of the ways we're going to move this whole thing forward. It's got to move into the healthcare system, because the problem with getting healthy is that you drop off the radar, right? You're not really part of the healthcare system anymore. If you just don't get sick, the healthcare system is not interested in you anymore. So somehow we have to make it so that the system itself is interested in us. And the only way you're going to do that is by making it part of the system. So I've thought about this for a long time, and I still really can't put it into words. So you just heard it for the first time, and you're probably going to have a hard time thinking about it. But think about it when you leave here. So I've worked in 9 states and 2 countries and dozens of hospitals because I can't hold a job. This is a job I held for a while. I was the chief of diagnostic imaging in Canada for 16 years. But I've also raised 3 vegan children, well, with my wife. With help, yeah. So what was that? And what do they look like? There they are. My wife, Bill. That's photo bonding. It's a selfie. I've never done that before. It came out pretty well, didn't it? So, any questions?
How much is the U of R course you teach?
The U of R course is $150 for people in the general public. It's $300 for doctors, if they want credit. Anybody can take it for $150, but if you want credit, it's either $250 or $300.
Is it during the week? Weekly?
It's going to be, it's weeknights. We are going to probably be doing it again until the fall, although last year we did, because it's kind of a big commitment, we do it 6 weeks. We just gave it at the Monroe County Medical Society office, and that was really a lot of fun. It was a nice space. We might do a weekend workshop. We did our first weekend workshop last fall, and it come Saturday and Sunday. So if there's enough people interested in that, we would consider doing that again. So I'll leave that up to the Vegan Center. So you guys, and we could even do it here actually.
What did that comprise of?
The workshop?
Yeah.
It's all 12 lectures in 2 days.
Into 2 days.
The problem with, and it's fine, you learn, you get all the same material. The problem is you don't have time to really digest it. And you don't have time to go home and practice. So a lot of the people who take that course, it's like this, you're practicing while you're doing it. And so you have time to practice, whereas if you do it on the weekend. But it actually was a lot of fun. I have to say we enjoyed it, and the people didn't really enjoy it. So, but you took it, right?
I took, the 6-week
Yeah, I
course.
took it too.
But Bob in the back is our videographer here. He took it, so.
It's a great course if you get the chance. I mean, for $150, it's a steal just for the food, because his wife Carol ends up making something to taste for every class. I mean, you come out of there, you actually have 6 tastings, and the manual that they put together is so full of information, both in terms of health and recipes and references and whatnot. And he does a great job. This density of information times, I guess, 12, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So Bob is kind of an amazing character. So you kind of did this on your own, right? You went plant-based on your own, and you've lost 102 pounds. Right?
That's where I'm at.
So I'm going to tell a little story. So one of the things we talked about throughout the course is reductionism versus holism. And reductionism is like when you're thinking about each individual nutrient, that's kind of reductionism. And I kind of poo-poo it and make fun. And so he comes up to me one day, actually at a RABS meeting, and says, I'm not getting enough lysine, I think. Right?
That's
And
my
actually,
bone.
So Barnett's second rule of medicine is if you make fun of another doctor, they will turn out to be right. So this was kind of one of those things. So I started to make, he's not a doctor, but I was making fun of him anyway. And so I said, come on, you're being so reductionist. Don't worry about the lysine, just eat a whole. And so he showed me Chronometer, which is this food diary that you can use online. And it actually does all the breakdown. And actually, I'm kind of persuaded now that it's actually pretty useful. So we are, and this gives me a good segue because, and then he's an expert on this stuff, really, more than anybody I know. He could tell you all about the ratios and things, because he likes it. I don't think you need to know this stuff if you just follow certain rules, right? If you eat a whole food plant-based diet with no oil and you're just getting a wide variety, it's going to happen. But this will convince you, if you do it on a Chronometer, you can kind of be convinced, oh yeah, this is really giving me everything I need, because here are all the breakdowns. And remember I showed you the USDA website, or the data that shows you a breakdown of all the different nutrients. Chronometer uses the USDA website. It basically, it goes and fetches the information from that when you're doing interrogating your own diet, but it's much easier to use. we are going to be doing a 2-week jumpstart, actually 15-day whole food plant-based jumpstart starting May 19th, which is a Saturday. So it's going to be by application because we're only going to have room for 25 people, and I have a feeling we're going to have a lot more than that. We're going to want to do it. But let me tell you about it because you might want to try to see if we can let you in. What is going to happen is Saturday morning, May 19th, you'll come in having fasted overnight, and you'll get a finger stick. And we'll do a lipid panel and blood sugar. And
What?
blood sugar.
Oh.
Lipid panel and blood sugar. And you'll know your results, instantly. Then you'll get fed breakfast, and we'll have some lectures like this. And then we'll have lunch, and then you'll go home. And then you come back on the following Saturday for, we're not sure yet, probably a potluck, and then the following Saturday, we'll repeat the whole thing. You'll have a finger stick, having fasted, find out what your lipid panel looks like now and your blood sugar. We know that a number of people, if they start out with high cholesterol, they'll see dramatic drops. You can see a 100-point drop in cholesterol easily in 2 weeks if you go from a lousy diet to a really good diet and your cholesterol is high. So if your cholesterol is not bad and you're on a pretty good diet, you're probably not going to see too much of a change, but you will see some improvement. We're running this we're calling it a beta pilot program so we're not going to charge very much because we're expecting things to go wrong. Not in terms of the diet itself, but in terms of just getting that many people through having all their blood tested, right? And getting everybody in, because we're going to be doing it over our offices on West Henrietta Road. And something's going to go wrong. And Sarah's going to do food. She's our next lecturer, and it's 2:00, and you had a question.
Oh, I was just wondering how many doctors and nurses finished the program?
How many doctors have taken the course? It's probably, I think, about 60 doctors have taken it.
That's great. My husband, Gregory, my husband's going to Dr. Teeters and saw his meditation. It's just wonderful what the
Right.
the puddle effect, or what do they call that?
The ripple effect.
That ripple
Right.
effect, yes.
So what she's talking about, her husband went to Dr. Teeters. Chad Teeters was the chief of cardiology at Highland Hospital. He took the course himself and became vegan and lost 90 pounds. And he's totally on board with Sense Solutions now. So anyway, it's 2:00. So it's time to.
And just one more plug for Ted's course. It is worth every single penny and every single minute of your time if you have the opportunity to take it. Absolutely.
What's the name of the course again?
The course is called plant-based. It's called a plant-based diet: eating for happiness and health. It's not advertised anywhere at the moment because we're going to be doing it in the fall. We just picked the dates. We're going to be doing it at the Monroe County Medical Society again. We've given it 6 times at the JCC. We've given it twice at RGH, twice at Highland, once at Unity, and now once at the Medical Society. I like that space over there. It squeezes everybody into a small space. It's just the room holds about 50 people, and we have about 50 people. And when we've given it at the amphitheater at RGH, which holds like 150, and then people spread out. They never get to know each other. So this is really kind of fun. So we're going to do it there again next time. We may do a weekend workshop. But if you're on their mailing list or whatever, you'll hear about it. Yes, Dan.
Just following up what Bob said and Bubby said, I just took the course too. And it's everything that Ted talked about and what the other 2 people just said. But it's an academic approach, but it's interesting. It's not just Dr. Ted lecturing. There's also question answer period. There's also videos in there. It makes you think about a lot. Is my point. And Bob mentioned about food is great. Carol, who does all the cooking, it's not one selection. There's 3, 4, 5 selections, and some of them have dessert and stuff like that. It's well worth it. It's very good.
And you'll get to hear me and Carol arguing about what the healthiest things are, because she tends to be a little more compromising than me about what ingredients she can use. So anyway, it's kind of
And
very
Carol also writes a follow-up from every section, and she is a very good writer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
So-
thank you again, Dr. Ted. We're going to bring Sarah on in a minute, but if anybody wants to stand up and stretch right now,